I'm Jillian Balo. I'm Wyoming's State Superintendent of Public Instruction. Native Americans are important to the fabric of who we are. Knowledge about the Arapaho, the Shoshone, and other regional tribes should not be limited to students in one community or one county or just a few schools across our state. Every student in Wyoming should have an in-depth understanding of how the Arapaho, Shoshone, and other regional tribes have profoundly impacted our culture, our politics, the history, the present, and the future of our state. Standards present a roadmap for teachers to follow. Having high standards with respect to Native American education presents that roadmap for teachers.
My name's Scotty Ratliff. I'm a member of the State Board of Education for the state of Wyoming. The people that have developed education have known that if we don't learn about history, we're bound to repeat it. The governments of the tribe have conflict, and since there's not a good knowledge base, a lot of times these problems don't get solved. It's not that somebody's out conspiring to make things bad necessarily for the native, it's just there's two different points of view. As we move forward with Indian Ed for All, I think you're going to see a better understanding. I think you're going to see kids having a better respect for each other. I think parents will have a better respect for each other. And I just see it as such a positive move. I think ultimately we're going to see the relationship between the tribes and the state of Wyoming greatly enhance.
I'm Affie Ellis and I serve in the State Senate. It's important for Wyoming students to understand Native history and culture because it's really a story of who we are. People that live in the West, people that live in Wyoming, having that perspective helps us understand who we are today. In Wyoming, we're very blessed to have a wonderful education system, and we've got two tribes that occupy Wyoming's Wind River Reservation. These are not just people that live in an isolated area, they're our neighbors and oftentimes our friends. It's important for students to understand how that history has evolved and who their neighbors are. Native American education is important for all schools in Wyoming because it touches on so many areas. Obviously there's a big cultural component, but there's also an important civics component in understanding how tribal governments work today and how those tribal governments interact with state governments and the federal government. Historically, Wyoming was home to a lot of Plains tribes, and so it's fitting and it's appropriate for the focus to be on the Northern Arapaho and Eastern Shoshone tribes as well as tribes in the region.
The review of standards for Native American education for all is unique when compared to our other review cycles that we've done in the state. In particular, we are not revamping all of the social studies standards. We're just enhancing them and making sure that Native American education for all is clearly and specifically represented in our social studies standards. This review committee needs to understand the uniqueness of the work. We can look at the structure in other states to determine maybe what the most important components for our students to know are, but we have to look inward to celebrate and understand what is most important about the Arapaho, the Shoshone, and the regional tribes that are specific to Wyoming. What we have now in our schools with respect to Native American education for all is lackluster at best. The resource materials in many cases are very old, incomplete, and are spotty from grade to grade. Native American education for all shouldn't just take place in one grade or in one class. One main goal is that students across our state understand that Native American cultures are part of who we are and not something separate.
I would hope that they would have an understanding of the governments. I hope there's something that says basically, can you tell me how the government works on the reservation? I would hope that they would have some of the history of each tribe so that people know where the Arapaho tribe came from, the Shoshone tribe came from, who are our ancestors. I think if you get to understand some of the culture and traditions of these two tribes, you'll have not only a better understanding, but a greater appreciation for what they're about. Having Indian Ed for All will not just talk about our rich past, but some of the great contributions that were currently available. I mean, the humor the art, the music. They're still alive and well in this community, and I think allowing others to experience them will enrich their life.
I think sometimes it's easy to overlook the modern contributions that Native American history and culture still have on people today. For example, if you look around, the city of Cheyenne is named after a group of Indians, and a lot of historic places are named after tribes. Even though we don't realize it, it's ingrained in some of our non-Indian cultures, and I think it's important to understanding the history of tribes and Indian people. People often ask me why tribes still defend their treaties so strongly. And I think the best analogy I can come up with is, why do we defend the U.S. Constitution like we do? It's an important document. It defines who we are, and for a lot of tribes, these historic treaties are still very important obligations and commitments that the federal government has made. And so they're not relics of the past. They still have a full force and effect today. This is an exciting time for anyone who follows federal Indian law, policy, and developments, I think, because you see a wide array of advocacy efforts by tribes to make sure that their voices are heard. This is a really big opportunity for Wyoming, and it's historic, and I think it sends a strong message to our neighbors that we're committed to this and we're committed to improving relations, and I think that's a really positive and important message. My hope is that review committee members don't think of Indian people just from a historical perspective, but also want to discuss their contributions that they're making to our state and our country today.